Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Diane Lane from Feud, Capote versus the Swans. And Diane, I think one of my favorite aspects of this series is watching the hierarchy of the Swans play out in this friends group because Slim, your character, in many ways emerges and asserts herself as kind of the leader of the group a lot. So how does that hierarchy work for Slim?
Hmm. I she's coming back to me just to hear you describe her. hmm. I think that she stuck to her guns, mm, more than some other people might have said. It's time to forgive, and she wasn't ready, and maybe that makes her a leader in the unforgiveness department. But I think she felt particularly betrayed for her own reasons, and of course, each of these women had their own regrettable experience in their trust of Truman Capote. In Slim's case, when the excerpt from his book was released in Esquire, um, it was as though she were the one being portrayed as the main gossip. She was the one. She could tell by the way she was described that she was the one who was doing the dishing on every. I mean, so she wasn't going to stand for that, I don't think. And also, she had done so much personally and professionally as a friend to Truman. She helped him, get his book $1 million offer. She helped him attain the services of Swifty Lazar as his agent after she was his first agent, actually, as a friend, because she knew so many people and she was such a social maven. And I mean, they traveled to Russia, to Europe. They were real pals, and she did get to read the first drafts every time there was a new draft. She was the first one to read it, or so she said. She was so proud of that. She loved him. She nurtured his career, and so I think that's why she stuck to her guns. And if you want to call her the leader of the pack, that's okay too. I'm not. I don't feel the need to defend her, but I want to explain it a little bit. That's all.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Well, the dynamics of that group often play out over these amazing lunch scenes at La Côte Basque. And some of your co-stars, I talked to Tom and Naomi, and they were saying that as opposed to a normal way of filming a dinner scene where it's one person's reaction you go through, oftentimes Gus was making the camera kind of swirl around
Right.
the tables, and I'm wondering, what did that do for you? How did that kind of filming style affect your approach to the scenes?
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes you think, am I even on camera right now? Or other times you're like, oh, I'm so glad the camera was not on me when I said that line because I really want another whack at it. Or, gee, I wonder if it doesn't matter if I'm, like you let go. You practice letting go of what is being captured and what is not. And you certainly would never time things for when the camera's on you. But sometimes we got lucky, and they would choose, they would try to choose moments when sometimes the people who were speaking were actually on camera, but sometimes and often they weren't, because that's like life. That's like lunch. That's like hanging out with people. We're not always uh, in each other's face and analyzing each other. So I think he was trying to capture that feeling of what it is to be in a social situation with more than just one other person. The energy's moving and flowing, and you get a sense of the place and the food and how they didn't eat much stuff. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It felt like theater more than strictly filming process.
Yeah. As you researched Slim, was there any particular aspect of her that you discovered that really you latched onto and you thought, oh, this is kind of my way in to her?
Mm. Well, I was lucky enough to hear her voice. It was a recording that I stole with my iPhone off of a recording that was part of a documentary about Truman. So I heard her being interviewed and her responses and how, I mean, I really wasn't doing her voice. I wasn't leaning back. She really leaned back in her throat a lot and was and had a body way of speaking. So I wasn't trying to emulate, I mean, sound like her too much, but I caught or I was trying to catch the emphasis on the syllable, the way she kind of spoke in an almost deadpan way. It's like her humor was up to you to get it. And if you missed it, oh well. There was something about her that just trusted her own way. And, people were much more, I think, full of personality in other eras. I don't know. Maybe it's just me because I wasn't around then. I wasn't an adult yet anyway. And I don't know. So I loved listening to her voice in the recordings she did about her experience in the documentary. She wasn't on camera, but and then her autobiography, which I'm actually looking at the spine of right now in my office. And I loved that book. I felt transported. I cared about her. I felt her journey from young woman to, and with the perspective of time, looking back on her youth and understanding it in a more circumspect way. And the way she graciously handled her experience and memories of Truman and the regrets there. She handled it so delicately because, of course, she learned so much from her experience, having been on the other end of a regrettable memoir or any piece of writing. I think a lot of people bought her book and just went right to the Truman pages because they were just dying to see what she had to say. And she handled it so well, I think. So I really enjoyed reading it, and I really enjoyed sort of hearing her voice through her writing. And that helped me. If that's a very long answer to your very simple question.
It was great. And
Okay.
you mentioned the era that we're in, and she really was like an extremely glamorous woman of that era, and always came out with looking like a 10 at each moment. So when you got into hair and makeup and costume, what did that unlock anything for you?
Well, we certainly felt very grateful and highly dependent on the costume and the hair and the makeup and all the crew making us look beautiful. And, the cinematography was just delicious. And I think the whole project, I keep saying film, the whole series is just an apex moment for every department on their credit list. It's just a wonderful thing to be a part of. And so, the transformation was pretty extreme at 5 a.m. You walk in the trailer looking like one thing, and you walk out looking like something else entirely. Much improved. And then the humility of at the end of the day, washing it all off and just saying, got to do that again tomorrow. How did these women do it? How did they do it? I guess practice makes perfect. And they only had to be themselves. And I say only, but at least, you get that one thing really down. And yeah, so.
She has a really shocking moment for viewers when we discover that she's sleeping with Babe's husband. And it's so fascinating to watch because she's been so upset at Truman, but she also has her own misdeeds. How do you think she kind of compartmentalizes that and squares away those two things?
I wish I knew. I mean, it's a different medium, this medium of series, because the scripts aren't written yet, all of them. Usually not, anyway, in my experience, certainly not. So you learn as you go and you find out what's expected of you. And sometimes there's surprises, and this was one of them. So Treat and I were like, looks like we're going to have a love scene. Call my agent. No, I'm kidding. But because it was intended to surprise, and it was intended, I guess, to surprise even us. So sometimes that happens, and you got to roll with it. And it was, I was so torn because I was thinking, you know, to this day, I'm wondering what I would have done differently. She must have been a really good actress, meaning to conceal the fact that she felt no guilt. But you know, we hadn't gotten there yet. And things get re-edited anyway. So, you know, so much of what actors do is you provide the work, and a lot of it is edited and presented in a different relation to each other. And so you say, oh, I have all this blue in the tapestry. Well, if I take away some of the green, it makes the blue even bluer, you know, and you're like, but what? But the green, I was really counting on that. I know it's a strange metaphor, like analogy, but that's how I make peace with things sometimes. So sometimes things are added, sometimes things are taken away. You think you know what you're signing up for, and you get surprised, sometimes pleasantly and sometimes not. And it's good because it keeps me flexible and strong, and you know, super grateful for being flexible, because that was a fun challenge to be that person, and to crumble from such a successful fooling. I fooled people, you know, and I feel a little bit guilty, honestly, about it. I mean, as a woman, as an actress, as a person, because we don't know. I mean, Slim would be 107 today, I think, and her daughter's still around. And she had her daughter when she was 29. So Kitty, you know, I feel a lot of feelings around it, as you can tell. But you know, I think what Ryan Murphy does is fantastic. I'm glued. When he did that first Feud, I knew from how much I loved the first one that this one was going to be shocking to me as well, because the other one was shocking to me in a great way. It just stretched the boundaries of what I imagined was permissible.
I think everyone I've spoken to from Feud has kind of talked about this intermingling of pain and love that exists between the characters that is essential for a feud. Do you see those two things with Slim? How do you relate to those two with this character?
Pain and love, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can't, I mean, as much as you loved is as much pain as you can, they correlate. If you don't care, you don't care. That's why they say, you know, not caring is the opposite of love. It's not hate. That's been established. But in this case, yes, and full circle again to forgiveness, and whatever that looks like. Because, by the way, if you live long enough, I imagine everybody would be forgiven, because you just, everything changes. Your priorities change. You change. Your self-knowing changes. So that's natural, and that brings some peace. That brings some modicum of peace, that we're not trapped in some unchanging world, which would be very unforgiving, actually. So, but as far as love and pain, yeah, I mean, what did the Buddhists say? Something about attachment? There's a quote in there somewhere. I'll let you
We'll Google it.
Go look up your Buddhist quotes. Yeah, you know, attachment is, it's not great to be attached to things, because they're gonna change on you.
Yeah. You a couple minutes ago, I think you kept referring to it as the film, and you have worked in film for, I would say, the bulk of your career, except for the past several years you've been diving into series more. And I'm curious, is there a different kind of challenge with a series with this long form storytelling? How do they compare to you?
Well, like I said, not being 1,000% certain you know what you're signing up for, that's always a little different. I like to, I mean, my feeling is what Shakespeare said: the play is the thing. At least we know that. Like, everybody can be fired, but we know what we're here to do. We're here to do this play. But when things would get rewritten and changed or haven't been written yet at all, so that it's just another echelon of flexibility within my craft, and that's just, again, change, and how it's about trust. It's about trust that you will be collaborating with, your helms people, whether it's, in this case, the wonderful John Robbie Bates, who was our writer and showrunner, but also, of course, Ryan Murphy with his vision and his desires and his preciseness, and him, knowing what he wants to mine emotionally out of these scenarios, and getting to the parts that people can relate to, and some of that is being shocked by others, and what choices they make and how different that is from us, and wondering what we would do in that situation and how we would handle it. And sometimes you just can't look away because it's so shocking or uncomfortable or something. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a pretty safe territory, compared to some other Ryan Murphy shows, so, everybody's got their threshold of what their tastes are and preferences are and stuff. This is really right up my alley. I loved Feud 1 so much. So I was so delighted to be in this room when my phone rang and it was Ryan, and he said, Slim, Keith, and we're just coming to you. We're just calling people direct. I was like, oh, that's how you do it. Didn't even come through my reps. Just went right to me. I was like, oh, how nice to be asked. I'm still kind of amazed. Yeah, it's nice. Nice moment in life. And I get attached.
Well, it's the latest in I think a career that has had a lot of variety to it in the types of roles you've tackled over the years. Is there anything still that you like, a style of performance or a genre that you haven't tackled yet, but you're dying to?
A genre? A style? Huh. Well, I've always been a little bit afraid of horror. It's not, but I know that there would be one day that if I vibed it, I would take the leap, but I'd have to vibe it. And I don't know what that is because I'm not into gore.
Mm.
But I can get really scared by movies. And so I'd have to figure out what that is.
Well, Ryan Murphy could probably help you with horror a little bit.
That's true. That is true. He knows a lot about it, but I can't handle a lot of, violence. I just can't do it. So everybody's got their thing.
Well, we'll see what you vibe with in the future. But in the meantime, fantastic work in Feud. And thank you so much, Diane, for sitting and talking with me.
Thank you, Sam. So nice to meet you today. This way, like we're, from my home to your home. It's very sweet.
Yes.